So a couple days ago, more like 2 weeks at this point, I got into a mild argument with a friend of mine online. This argument was caused by the opening video you just saw. I had posted it on a Discord server that I'm part of, which will remain anonymous. My reason for sharing the video: to draw attention to hypocrisy I've been noticing in the past few years. Specifically, that there are people who once complained about everything bad from the former President Donald Trump have gone completely silent and even defensive when having to be confronted by the current president grope and sniff. Now, this friend, let's call him Captain. No, wrong Captain. Close enough. The subject I brought up specifically in our conversation was about inflation and the prices of gas in the United States. My point was that the price of fuel had gone up even before the Russian situation. His argument was that because fuel comes from Russia, it is reasonable to believe that it would go up in price. I can understand that, but my problem was, as I pointed out, there are more than one place in to get fuel. For example, the Middle East, Alaska, South America, with such countries like Venezuela being a prime example before the economic crash. Another example would be how, during the Trump years, America was actually a big exporter of fuel. Let me say that again. While Trump was in office, here's an article from Bloomberg back in 2018. For the first time in 75 years, we were exporting fuel. Our economy was that good. But once Biden was put in charge, all of that changed. Because just like the promises of forgiving college loan debt, which became evident that it was a lie afterwards with so many people feeling betrayed, Biden had promised that he would change the way we would harvest fuel. For example, the Keystone Pipeline was canceled thanks to Biden taking action, and that was in June of 21. And while he was campaigning, while on Twitter, he mentioned 1. End subsidies for fossil fuel corporations. 2. Ban new drilling on federal lands and waters. 3. Hold oil executives accountable. 4. Rally the world to raise the commitments of the Paris Agreement. March 15th, 2020. And that's just a few examples of how Joe has caused all these problems, while most of the same people who made all kinds of wailing screams over Orange Man bad have gone completely silent. Another portion of our conversation was about Trump, specifically comparing his presidency to the current presidency. He argued that Trump was corrupt because of a few reasons, and one of the main things that he focused on was the Capitol riot. Now let's get one thing perfectly clear. The events that happened on that day, January 6, 21, have still not been fully released, considering multiple organizations have delayed the actual findings, as far as I'm aware. In fact, some footage that was only released last summer, months after the initial event. But then again, you have to remember that this is the best the political left can do. Having spent an entire summer cheering on black people killing each other and burning down their own cities, while running defense for fiery but peaceful. Another group being quiet is the kids in cages crowd. You know, the people who spent years slandering Trump as literally Hitler, because photos of children in cages at what looked like concentration camps at the southern border of the United States were discovered. What they didn't tell you is that they were taken back in 2011, when Obama was in office. Now, it is true that Trump was in office when he was still undergoing the circumstance of separating children. What most people don't realize is what actually was going on in this iceberg situation. So allow me to explain. Back when Obama and Vice President Biden were in office, it was discovered that we were having children held separately in cages with makeshift blankets for bedding rather than actual beds. It was also discovered that most of these children were the victims of sex traffickers. Oh yes, and what's absolutely horrendous, Obama and Biden were giving these children back to their handlers. Let me say that again so you can let it sink in. The first Black African American President of the United States, token human being that he was, who was given a Nobel Peace Prize for no reason, gave human trafficking victims back to their handlers. And what about Trump? It turns out that he was actually trying to put a stop to that by introducing DNA tests to these children. And when it turned out that the people claiming to be their owners weren't actually related to them, Trump was offering an opportunity to give American citizens a chance to adopt these children in foster care. But that didn't matter. The narrative had already been established, and the people ran with their claims. And now that Biden is back in office, not only have the conditions gone back to the standard of Obama, but apparently it's gotten worse with overcrowding. Not to mention, yes, they are, in fact, going right back to giving them back to their handlers. Oh yeah. This is the President of the United States. And now we have a new circumstance to deal with. We have the current Supreme Court Justice nominee, chosen by Biden, who apparently is a trans woman, meaning a man who thinks he is a woman, and who cannot give a definition for what a woman is, and is apparently, based on what I could find, soft on child porn and pedophilia. I wonder why. This is why I get upset. This is why I wanted to start making my videos last year, and why I continue to do what I can from the limited reach that I have. During our argument, I said something that I think greatly applies here. Gaslighting. It's how people who don't pay attention can be easily manipulated by narcissistic psychopaths and political power grabbers. Now, as much as I've been ranting here on the subjects that we talked about, I just have to say, I don't blame Captain. I mean it. And I will admit, I got heated myself during the conversation that we had. For what little time that we had. By the way, for context, I was stuck at my day job having to be a spotter for a forklift for almost an entire hour, and by the time I got back, I found out that not only had he left the actual chat, he left the server itself, my personal server. But I still forgive him. I understand that he's a busy person and the kind of things he's dealing with in his life. You can have other things to deal with, and it causes you to not notice other things. I've had my fair share. And yes, I still consider him a friend. I mean it.
I got more respect for that black man than I do you white niggers out there.
But the people I do blame, I blame the media outlets. And I blame the so-called fact-checkers who've been debunked so many times it's not even funny. I might make a video about that later, but until then, all I can say is yes, I do blame them. I blame them for constantly moving goalposts and claiming any new outlet of blame rather than ever addressing what's really at fault and putting it where it needs to be. So my advice to everyone, see what's really going on in the world. And hopefully we can all come together to realize that whether it's left or right, we all need to be aware that there are always people trying to screw us over. And until then, God bless, good journey, Christ loves you, and take care.